the ending, the breakout room, and the way that they finish the lessons. And they've used a variety of tools like the quizzes, the Kahoots, the Flipgrid. If you haven't used Flipgrid, it's another way to get feedback or just get kids sharing what it is that they're learning. So that's been a lot of work, but the payoff is that the students are feeling more comfortable. They actually know what they're doing. They're starting to develop more agency and working a little bit more independently. And then it's also set up for next year. So it might not be exactly the same, but all this really intentional planning and this thought that's going into what's really important for our kids will pay dividends going forward. Tools. So I thought from a story I'd jump into a tool, and one of the tools that I'm liking is the virtual manipulatives that I discovered over lockdown through one of the NCTM webinars that they've been running. I've had a little bit of time to jump into Mathagon, and if you haven't seen Mathagon, that's just an online textbook here that's just getting better and better, and there's so much stuff in there. Menti we've had a look at, and we might finish off with Padlet. And in my environment that I work in, I work extensively with Classroom integrated with Google Sites, and they've become really useful over this time, and I think they'll just get better going forward. So whatever platform you use, you'll be able to do that sort of thing. So I thought we should jump out and do some maths. This BitLink will take you to a site called the Math Learning Centre if you haven't seen it. And it's got a few tools, but the one that I thought we would look at is the shape tool. And so if you can either just type the bit.ly, I don't think you need the HTTPS bit at the beginning. AMA shapes, the capitalization is important. Jared might chuck that in the chat. And I want you just to have a play. It's very intuitive. And also play, if the yellow hexagon is 1, how many ways could we make 1? So I'm going to be silent now for 3 minutes and let you go have a play. Should take you here.
I'll just pause the recording while they're playing, shall I? Or not?
Oh, thanks, Rachel. Yeah, that's a good idea. That'll save Jared some, you know, it's more than just play, it's intentional play. And how could we use the pattern blocks teaching number, say, at level 3 and 4? And that we can use the fractions, we could get them to add fractions, we can actually get them to see equivalent fractions, we can see how much bigger some things are than others. So they do tie back in an intentional way. The pencil tool on there, what I like about these tools is that there is no sign up, they're free to use, they're device friendly, they work on a Chromebook, they are downloadable for your iPad or a phone so that you can actually use your pencil or your finger on them, and I use my finger to write on these as well. And we can see here how we can kind of take them from just being geometric shapes into fractions, and you can just drop in the chat how else you could see them being used from a number perspective. I see that they also probably have a really big link to geometry, because of course in level 4 we have to be able to identify the geometric properties and the different shapes. And the nice thing about these shapes is, and this tool is, I don't know if you noticed on the toolbar, but there is a lovely protractor. And how often in class do our students not have protractors, or they've broken their protractors, and the protractor can be used to find all sorts of different angles and look at the different shapes in that way. And that's one of the advantages, I think, of the tools, is that you've always got the tool on hand if your device is working. Thinking about transformations, reflection, rotation, tessellation goes a little bit further back in the curriculum, but it's still right there sitting inside this tool. I think these were originally generated for younger students, but as we know, our older students really love what the younger students have. So thinking about these from a geometry perspective, and that previous slide, just take a minute to throw in the chat how you could see potentially an application for using these in your school or in your classroom. So we've got algebra and improper fractions, level 1 geometric reasoning. How do you rotate the shape? You rotate the shape by grabbing the little thing at the top of it, up here. That's the rotate shape. And then I suppose you could fit the protractor, just to answer that question. You could fit the protractor somewhere here, and then rotate the shape. Oh, I'm sure there's something that we could do there with that. We could pop it there and see what the angle of rotation was. I'm starting to fiddle. Geometric reasoning. Wish you knew about this last week. Exactly. It's always, how do you make a 3D shape? You bring the things together. Have a play once you've made a cube. I made a cube using this tool here, I think. And I used the duplicate button to make several of them, and linked them together up here. Whoops. I put them like this. Whoops. They do snap together. I'm a little bit slow with the mouse. And then spun this one around and dropped it in here. To make a 3D, I use the pencil at the bottom to kind of just group it, and then I've got a 3D shape that I can spin around. Other questions sitting down there? Higher needs to move into abstract thinking, absolutely. I think we underestimate at secondary school that need for manipulatives, and I think just having them available for kids to use, whether they use them or not, is really important. Angles of polygons, the protractor. We will save the shape so that you can go back and look and see what everyone else has there. Okay, and of course we're all about evidence. So how do we collect evidence for our students, or of our students' work, or how do they share their work with their classmates, or with you, or with their family? We've got the snipping tool, of course, where we can snip and save, and the screenshots and save to whatever platform you're using. You could use the screencaster, and I think they've just added screencasting to that, or to Flipgrid, or any screencasting tool, and then they could upload it to their platforms, or they could put it in a blog, or they could make, you could have a class YouTube channel that's not public. So there's all sorts of things that they can do. And as they make a movie, you could go back and watch what they were doing, and they could be talking through what they're thinking. So you might actually find out more things about what the students are thinking and where they're going. And we're always surprised at what they do with it. So here we go. This is the Maths Learning Centre, and these are like the 6 tools. The old geo boards that used to be, those of us that have been around a while will remember the geo boards, which the tech department used to make for us, but I think in most places they got thrown out. So Now we've got a virtual one, which we're never going to lose, and they can't take the nails out and stab each other with them. So they're there for you to explore. So what is good virtual manipulative practice? You feel free to write in the chat here as well, but I think the consistent use of using something is really important, and it doesn't mean that you have to spend a long time or a big block of time, but just little and often, giving the kids time to discover and explore with the tools and to ask questions. And then it's our job as teachers to let them see the connections maybe to what they're doing to the mathematics behind it. So that was, you know, so our role is changing a little bit. Rather than filling their buckets, we're kind of giving them the tools to fill their own buckets and bringing it all together for them. Okay, so this is time for you to go and have a chat. As time's sort of rocking on, but what I thought we'd do is I'm going to send you to breakout rooms, and so you can share amongst yourselves. There's 32 of us, so I'm going to put us, 30 of us, I'm going to put us just for 7 minutes, or maybe a little bit less, put us into 5 breakout rooms. So there were 6 breakout rooms, so that'll be round about 4 people each in a breakout room. And in there, I want you just to unmute yourselves. You can have your video on or off, whatever suits. I've created a Google slide, which is called AMA Breakout, and we'll drop that into the chat. You might want to grab that before you go to the breakout rooms, or I'll post it back in there. And just share the things that you've been doing in class over lockdown and now that you're back. So what I did here is I shared what I call a collaborative document, really, and I find with groups of students or groups of adults, it's always good to set up a slide for each group and actually name it, and then they've got their place to actually write. But it means that people can see what other people are writing. They can be prompted if they're stuck for ideas and writer's block and come back. I said we're going to share, but we're kind of running out of time. But I'm thinking a couple of things that have popped up in the discussion I had in room 4 and looking at the slides was, one, we all wish we knew what we know now at the very beginning. But I mean, at the beginning we were thrown into the deep end, and I think our learning has been accelerated by probably 10 years in the way that we can actually do stuff. And the challenge is not to drift back into our old ways and just start implementing little bits in an intentional and a planned way, not like we were forced to sort of just cope, really. But I saw an option there where, you know, it's the personalising learning, and that's what the Northland teacher said. She's allowed, and also a teacher in Christchurch, they've noticed that the learning is starting to become a little bit more personalised towards the students because they've all come back in different ways that give them some freedom. And I'm going to just leave this document here, and you can come back to it and have a look at it later as we zoom on forward. Another story from another Auckland school as they came back to the end of term 2 is that they decided they'd change their junior program. They had a lot of anxious students and anxious parents, and well, they were calling it the integrated unit, but we've decided it's probably more of a common themed unit because the subjects are still teaching in their subject areas, but they're planning around a common theme, and they are planning together, which is really cool. So they've used the COVID context, and they've had the courage to go, we're changing our timetable, and school finishes at 2:30 for the juniors now, and the teachers spend that time planning and also running special sessions with the seniors. So that what they've seen in the 3 weeks that they've been back is that they've got students who are a bit more engaged in what they're doing. The teachers are happier because they've been acknowledged for all that work that they did over their holidays, and that all of you probably did, just trying to stay on top of things. And we're just hoping that's going to end up in better outcomes for everybody. And this is all done through a Google site, and each subject area has set up a Google site, which can be accessed from this common page. So that's another option. Another school I was talking to does a flexible Friday. That's an intermediate school, so they're not so much siloed in subjects. But I thought from a subject point of view, we could also do flexible Friday in this sort of way, where we set up a choice board for the kids. This one's just static, but what I've done is I've gone one slide further and I've found some links to maybe some things that will spark curiosity in the kids and that you might not have seen before. The maths and dance, I was reminded watching the home learning TV with Susie Cato with the little tiny ones about all the algebra and patterns that and the transformations that are in the Samoan Sasa and the Pacifica dances, where they're they're translating themselves, they're turning, they're clapping, and we've got all the moves and things there. Have You Got Maths Eyes is an interesting one, where you could send your kids out to take photos of things around them in their community that have got a mathematical theme somewhere and just build a photo board. And I won't go through all of those because there's lots of things there to see, but you can explore those at your leisure. The school in Christchurch, they are giving kids a bit more independence and agency through a spreadsheet and setting them, and this is sort of homework out of class time, so they're expected to do 2 hours out of class time during a week, and the whole week's work is kind of set and it's shared via a spreadsheet where the kids rate themselves in the student judgment column, the teacher rates themselves, they can link and upload their evidence over here, and then the parent can actually join in. And what they've found there is that the students are choosing when they do these tasks, they can choose how long it takes them. When they get to 2 hours, they stop, and they need to have done sort of like a fair effort, but not spent hours struggling over it. And one of the big things that have come out of this is the parents are more involved now that they can also see what the students are doing. And then when they set this up like this, I thought, I wonder if there's another way that I could do this. And so for me, I was exploring Bitmoji in virtual classrooms, and I've set this up in, this is just a Google slide with a background and transparent pictures, and I'll post the link. In fact, I'm not sure if you can grab it off the slides, but the bit.ly link, there's a short video on how to make this stuff, and it was quite simple, but what I've done is I've hyperlinked things to different activities. So my bowling ball is hyperlinked to the bowl of fact and how to play. Now this is set up for you more than the students, but the students could probably still run that from YouTube. Ucubed. The old Pythagoras, he's sitting there, and here we go. We could set up the learning so they could go and do some self-learning from Pythagoras, from Maths is Fun. Here's a tangram shape and a manipulative out of Mathagon, which if you haven't explored Mathagon, you need to go and explore the book. It's all free. It's full of interesting stuff about all sorts of topics that are linked to maths. But again, this is one of those drag and drop things, and there's shapes down here that you can make. If you download your final picture, kids can take screenshots. The book here I linked to Mathagon, and this is an example of what's in the book. So factors and multiples, and you can scroll on down, skip the steps or reveal all, and there's quizzes, divisibility rules, prime numbers, lots of interactives through that. There's also a link I'll drop at the end with NCTM, who've done some amazing stuff with that. So anyway, you can do that. So thinking this, just to bring this to a close, my last little favorite tool is a Padlet. And it's like, where are we going to go next with this? And so if you go to that link, and you can do it now or you can do it later, but it will take you to a Padlet, Whoops, here we go. I've lost my little Padlet. Sorry. Here we go. So a Padlet's like an interactive whiteboard. So if you haven't seen the whiteboard, here it is. Can you see that blue screen with a what's next to you? I always think, you know, if we've been in a session, it's like all morning you've seen things and like, what is the one thing that you might take forward? Now you can do this anonymously or you can do this and put your name on it. But for me, I'm making a commitment to keep sharing the learning that I have the luxury to do sometimes during my day. And that's going to happen on the 1st of July with Alana Magic when we're going to look at literacy and language and how that's all connected up in mathematics. So feel free to just click on there and add your promise that you're going to make to yourself, say, and you can also add comments to other people's here. This would be a great collaborative tool for the class. It's quick, it's easy, and at the moment you can have 3 Padlets. If you haven't had a Padlet account before, you can have 3, so you can use them, maybe screen capture them, throw them off and do another one.
Robyn, can I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
I'm on the Padlet and I'm trying to create a thing and I couldn't. So what did I do something wrong?
Just click on the screen, on that blue screen.
I did, and it wouldn't take.
Should just happen. Yeah, it should just. Oops, I've lost my Padlet. It should just automatically, as soon as you click on it, it should give you, or you might need to double click.
Tim's suggesting double click here.
Double click if it hasn't, yeah. So just double click if it didn't work. A double click?
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
Yeah.
It did work. Yeah.
So, oh, there it is. The simple tool for. So it's just another simple tool. So 11:49. I've left a slide here. Other things I'm hanging on to. The NCTM 100 days. That's going until October, and everything that they do is recorded. And I'm also saving that into the shared drive of the math teachers group. The notes that I make, they're rough and ready, but they might help you if you miss them. And what I like about the recording is you can play them at double speed. You don't have to spend an hour. You can spend sort of 20 minutes listening. The Education Hub for just general pedagogical stuff about teaching, and being able to sign up for free PD from the comfort of home. So Spectrum Education, I don't know what that'll be like. I've never signed into anything that they've done, but they have a free conference online here in July, but that's run by Karen Tui Boys. And then the Build Maths Minds is from the States, and it's geared at younger children. And I joined into some of those last year and they were fantastic. As a secondary maths teacher, I got a lot out of some of those sessions. And again, they're recorded, so you have about 4 days following the session. They're not sort of freely available forever, because this does start at like 5 o'clock in the morning our time and goes through till about midday. And that's me really. Ka kite. Thank you very much for being part of our session. These resources will go on the website, and I'll also put them on this website as well so that you can access them. Here we go.
Okay, I think I'm just trying to take back over the screen for a second.
Yeah, you've got it, Jared.
Cool.
Beautiful.
Thank you everyone for your participation, but thank you, the biggest thank you to Robyn for this session, and I've already thanked you, I think, for setting up the day and all the stress that's gone into that, so well done. AMA have a few things coming up, so we've got 2 Wednesday evening sessions, so those will be similar to one of these sessions, about a 45 to an hour's Zoom conference style thing. We also have, got that in the way, MathX is going to be running, so find out more about that if you're an Auckland teacher, and I think people outside of Auckland might have the opportunity this year, we're not quite sure. And there's our website for membership, and the Auckland Maths Association is having their AGM in August with a date to come. Feedback can be done about the whole day at that Bitly address there. And we are getting the videos together of all these sessions as well. Otherwise, thank you everybody, and thanks again, Robyn. Have a great Saturday.
Pleasure. Ka kite, go and enjoy the rest of your weekend, people. Well deserved.